Ben Bernanke, as I said, threw cold water on 2013 tax hikes today of any kind. He told the Senate Budget Committee that they would threaten our economic recovery. Please take a listen.
If no action is taken on January 1st, 2013, between expiration of tax cuts, sequestration, a number of other measures, there'll be a very sharp change in the fiscal stance of the federal government, which by itself would with no compensating action, would indeed slow the recovery.
All right, joining us now, Senate Budget Committee members Ron Wyden, Democrat from Oregon, Ron Johnson, Republican from Wisconsin. Gentlemen, welcome back to the program, both of you. Mr. Johnson, if I can begin with you, Bernanke made it very clear that tax hikes now scheduled for 2013 could derail the economy. Why isn't there a conversation in Washington to stop these tax hikes?
Well, there's not much of a conversation in Washington about, really our whole debt and deficit issue here at all. And we absolutely have to start having that conversation because, Larry, we have to grow our economy. And the CBO came out pretty much the same results when they issued their new baseline, too, that if we let these Bush tax cuts expire, it's going to do great harm to economic growth. And that's the number one component of a solution is growing our economy.
Senator Wyden, I really ask you the same question because the budget leaks so far suggest not only are the Bush tax hikes going to stay in place, but the president is going to layer on a millionaire's tax and also take some punitive measures against corporations. How can this grow the economy?
Larry, first of all, I think Chairman Bernanke was actually even stronger. As you know, he is not a person given to hyperbole, but he was talking today about shocks to our economic system, and he compared it, for example, to what happened when there was efforts not to raise the debt ceiling. And to me, if you don't deal with this payroll tax, and again, you have more uncertainty, failure to provide our businesses the ability to predict what's ahead, I think there are going to be huge kinds of consequences. And as you know, what I really want to see, along with Senator Dan Coates, I've introduced the first bipartisan tax reform bill in a quarter century, where we go in there, clean out those special interest tax breaks to hold down rates and grow the economy for everybody.
Senator Johnson, tax reform, kind of music to my ears. Simplification sure beats raising taxes to put us back into recession.
Absolutely. Now, I'm all for pro-growth tax reform that eliminates, our 70,000-page tax code and simplifies it dramatically to actually help grow our economy. And one thing I would caution, one of the points I made up, there was an interesting article in the Wall Street Journal talking about what Maryland tried to do in 2007. A millionaire's tax was expected to raise $330 million. It raised $120 million, about 36%. And that's certainly the caution I wanted to throw in there is, you start raising taxes on small to medium-sized businesses, you're going to harm economic growth, and you're not going to raise the revenue that you hope to raise.
Senator Wyden, are you in favor or are you opposed to the millionaire's tax, so-called?
I think what's really needed, Larry, is to stay away from any approach that doesn't give everybody in America the opportunity to get ahead. What Senator Coates and I are trying to do on a bipartisan basis is create incentives for everybody. When Democrats and Ronald Reagan got together, we created 6.3 million new jobs in 2 years. I think we could do that again. I think it would have such a powerful boost psychologically, and that's why I mentioned Dr. Bernanke's testimony today. He is not given to exaggeration. He was talking about shocks to the system, a failure to move ahead in these areas that are so important in terms of providing certainty.
Well, we should listen
I want to see us give everybody the opportunity to get ahead. This is going to be the year when we can make a real difference for pro-growth tax reform. Senator Dan Coates, a Republican who's been on your show, and myself, I think, have a good way to start the conversation.
Senator Wyden, I just want to follow up. I don't want to be moving away from Senator Johnson, but you are pushing for a corporate tax reform that would actually punish corporations operating overseas. I'm surprised to hear that, given your other tax reform proclivities, particularly coming from an export state like Oregon. Why do you want to punish overseas companies?
Well, first of all, Larry, what we do is we lower the corporate rate from 35 to 24. And frankly, we could lower it even a bit more. But what we ought to do is do everything we can to create incentives for red, white, and blue jobs. We need to grow jobs in this country. I am pro-exports. I managed a big chunk of the trade agenda on the floor of the Senate here recently. What I want to do is make things here, grow things here, add value to them here, and ship them somewhere. Dan Coates and I slash the corporate tax rate dramatically. We could take it down a bit lower, but we do try to create the incentives for growing the economy here in our country.
But Senator Johnson, let you weigh in on this point. Why should we double tax corporate profits? Why shouldn't we do it territorially where they operate the way every other industrialized country does? We would be the only one. In fact, right now, we're the only one that punishes companies that operate overseas for sales reasons, for distribution reasons, you name it. What's your take on that, Senator Johnson?
Well, Larry, it's like any business. You have to benchmark your costs. You have to benchmark your business environment. And we have to do that here in America. We need to make sure that America is an attractive place to headquarter business, to build a manufacturing plant, and you do that by taking a look at your regulatory environment. Ours is onerous, and you do it by taking a look at your tax regimen. And again, ours doesn't stack up very well. But one comment I want to make too that Chairman Bernanke made very clear: we have got to address the long-term entitlement issue, and that's something this president has totally failed to lead on. We need presidential leadership. We need to start addressing that, because Chairman Bernanke said it's clearly unsustainable path that we're on here right now.
All right.
One word on this territorial issue.
I got to leave it there, Senators. I'm sorry. Okay. I'd love to have a much longer discussion of this. I'm going to come down there and sit with you guys, and we can talk it through.
That'd be great.
But right now, thank you, Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon, Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin. Thank you, gentlemen.